On the evening of October 22nd, 2013, Philip Chisholm's mother, Diana Chisholm, contacted the Danvers Police Department to report her son missing. She reported that Philip, a 14-year-old student at the local high school, had failed to return home after school that day, raising mounting concerns. Diana informed the police that Philip had recently moved to Danvers from Tennessee and that she had never experienced any behavior like this from him before. Recognizing the importance of quickly locating Philip, the Danvers Police Department acted swiftly. They posted a picture of Philip, along with a description of his height and weight, on the department's social media networks. These posts helped spread the word about the missing student and encouraged anyone with information to. In addition, Danvers locals received a reverse 911 call notifying them of Philip's abduction and supplying them with important data regarding his description, while Diana Chisholm reported Philip missing. Colleen Ritzer's parents were equally concerned about their daughter. Colleen, a 24-year-old math teacher at Danvers High School, did not return home from work that day, and her parents began to worry. Colleen Ritzer was a very organized young woman who rarely broke from her routine without telling her parents. She stuck to it religiously. She was very dedicated to her job, and her love for her kids was clear in everything she did. Officer Neil Hoody of the Danvers Police Department was worried about Philip Chasm and went to search Old Route 1 north of Danvers for the missing teen. At 12:28 a.m., as he scoured the rural, icy, isolated area with little lighting, Officer Hoody saw a figure walking in the unsafe area on a bridge that led down to the dark highway. Officer Hovhani pulled over to the side of the road and got out. As he did, he saw a young man wearing shorts, a zip-up sweatshirt, black socks, and shoes. Philip Chisholm stood there with his backpack slung over his shoulder. Officer Hovey, a seasoned and experienced officer, noticed a few alarming things about Philip Chisholm. First, he was walking alone in an area that wasn't safe at that time of night. Second, Philip was wearing shorts when it was cold and wet outside. During the exchange, Philip looked past Officer Hovey as if the officer wasn't there. Officer Hovey asked Philip where he lived, and Philip replied that he had nowhere to call home. To Officer Hovey's surprise, Philip said he had been living on the streets for days, but the police officer saw something strange. Concerned about Philip's well-being, Philip didn't look messy or untidy like someone who had been out in the weather for a long time would. Officer Hovey chose to frisk him and found plastic in his pocket. He asked Philly to empty it. Philip did what she asked and pulled out a driver's license, insurance card, and credit card. These were not Philip's papers. They belonged to Colleen Ritzer. Philip was asked by Officer Hovey how he got the credit card. According to Philip, he found the card at a grocery store. But when asked for more information on which store it was, Philip hesitated and said he didn't know. When Hovey got to the station, he started going through Philip's backpack and was shocked to find a number of suspicious items that raised red flags. Officer, after doing more research, Jovie found a woman's bag and underwear for women. LED Officer Hoody to find a box cutter covered in a reddish-brown substance. Realizing that the substance was blood, the officer became very worried. He asked Philip carefully whose blood it was, and was shocked when Philip said it was the girl's. Officer Hovey briefly left the room to make a call to the Danvers Police Department. While he was gone, another officer stayed in the room with Philip and asked him where the girl was. Philip told the other officer that she was buried in the woods. Concerned for the girl's safety, the officer asked Philip if they could help her. Philip's answer, no, made the officer nervous. The officer looked over at Philip and saw that he had brown and red stains on the sleeves of his sweatshirt and a ski mask around his neck. So they took Philip's clothes and shoes while they dealt with Philip Chisholm. Officer Steve Belair went to Danvers High School to look for Colleen Ritzer. When Officer Baldisa arrived, he started gathering information and waiting for security camera footage from the school. This footage would give them important clues about where Colleen was after she finished teaching for the day. Officer Baldisa met with his fellow officers to share information and get updates. He learned that they had found several important clues. They found Colleen's bag in a recycling bin, her shoes and clothes near a running trail near the student parking lot, and her personal items in a bush near the path. When the police looked in the recycling bin, they saw what looked like blood. Another cop who searched the school found what looked like blood in the women's bathroom on the second floor, which was close to Colleen's classroom, and made them even more suspicious. Officer Belair, who knew how Philip Chisholm looked from reading about his missing on social media, saw a man on the video at 2:30 p.m. who matched Philip's description. The video showed Philip following Colleen Ritzer out of her classroom and walking down the school hallway. While Officer Belair kept watching the CCTV tape, he saw Colleen Ritzer go into the bathroom on the second floor for women. Philip walked in behind her, but she didn't know what he was up to. A few minutes later, Philip came out of the bathroom dressed differently than when he went in. What was even scarier was that he had a mask on his face, as if he was trying to hide. At 3:16 p.m., Philip left school and went into the visitor parking lot. He went back to the second floor women's bathroom with a recycling bin and waited a moment. Then he left the bathroom with the bin and tow-pulled it outside the school, out of the camera's view. It's scary to think that Officer Balsar never saw Colleen Ritzer leave the second-floor women's bathroom. When the Danvers Police Department found out that Philip Chisholm was safe, they took the teen into custody and brought him to the Danvers Police Department to be questioned about the disappearance of Colleen Ritzer. At the same time, the Massachusetts State Police arrived at Danvers High School to begin a crime scene investigation and began looking for where the bloody recycling bin had been found. Diana Chisholm went to the police station and was questioned by an officer. During her interview, she talked about her worries about her son Philip's mental health. She said that Philip was prone to snapping because of the stress of her and her husband's recent separation. Diana also said that there was a history of mental health problems in her family at around 2 a.m. Philip Chisholm and his mother Diana were led into an interrogation room at the Danvers police station. As they walked in, Trooper and Sergeant Philip Tansey met them. Before the official interview started, Philip and his mother talked to each other in private for about 10 minutes. While Trooper Basher and Sergeant Taney were talking to Philip, officers stood on the other side of the wall and quietly fed them information about the CCTV footage. The video showed Philip following Colleen Ritzer into a woman's bathroom on the second floor. Colleen was never seen leaving the bathroom and was later found covered in blood. While Philip Chisholm was being questioned, the Massachusetts State Police Air Wing and Denver's Fire Department used their infrared technology to search the area for any signs of Colleen cadaver. Tracking dogs and their skilled handlers also searched the area around Denver's high school. Philip finally told the police that he had knocked Colleen out with a karate chop and then cut her twice with a box cutter. The details of his confession were shattering, and he showed the police on a map where he had dumped Colleen's body in the woods behind the school. Finally, around 3 a.m., a forensic scientist found something disturbing: a toe with pink nail polish sticking out of a small pile of leaves. The forensic scientist called for paramedics right away. The paramedics got there quickly and started digging through the dirt. Their search led them to Colleen Ritzer's dead body. Even though the doctor tried hard, it was clear that Colleen had died. Her body was carefully taken to the medical examiner's office for an autopsy. A forensic pathologist named Dr. Anna MacDonald found male DNA on Colleen's body. When this DNA was analyzed, it shockingly fit the profile of Philip Chisholm. Dr. MacDonald found patia, or small bleeding areas around Colleen's eyes and mouth, which is a sign of asphyxiation. He also found blood on Philip's box cutter that matched Colleen's DNA, which led him to think that the box cutter was used to violently attack Colleen. When he looked at the body, Dr. MacDonald saw multiple wounds on Colleen's neck, showing that she had been slashed many times in the same spot, causing a lot of injuries. The autopsy report said she had at least 16 cuts to her neck. Some of them were fatal, and even the ones that weren't would have been unbearably painful for Colleen. One of the wounds was so deep that it chipped her vertebrae. Based on the evidence, Dr. MacDonald concluded that Colleen died due to sharp force injuries, asphyxiation by strangulation, and injuries to her neck, made it clear that this wasn't an accident, but a deliberate act meant to hurt Maxime. When news spread around Danvers that Colleen had been killed, everyone was shocked, especially when they learned that Philip Chisholm was the main suspect. It seemed impossible that someone so young could have done something so horrible. In connection with Colleen's murder, Philip Chisholm was charged with aggravated sexual assault and murder. He pleaded not guilty to the charges. This decision caused controversy and raised questions about how young offenders are treated in the criminal justice system. Some people said that Philip's age shouldn't have stopped him from being tried as an adult. Others thought that the seriousness of the crime called for such charges. Colleen Ritzer's students were heartbroken when she died. They remembered her as a kind and loving teacher who always went the extra mile to help them do well. It was unbearable to lose such a beloved mentor, and the Danvers community came together to mourn her death and honor Colleen's memory. There were videos with candles and a moment of silence for Colleen before the first World Series game for the Boston Red Sox. An enormous number of people from all walks of life came together to show their sorrow and help her family through this sad time. What on earth made Philip Chisholm attack and kill his beloved teacher, Colleen Ritzer? The New York Post said there were rumors that Philip was in love with his teacher and lost it when she turned him down. A source told the Daily Mail that one of the rumors going around was that Philip had a big crush on Colleen. According to the source, Colleen was friendly and easy to get in touch with. This could have led Philip to mistake her friendliness for flirtiness and make advances on her on a local website. A Philip's classmate wrote in Wicked Local Danvers after Colleen's murder that Philip was antisocial, tired, and out of it. Some students were worried about Philip's behavior, saying that he often showed up drunk, drawn, and uninterested. But no one could have imagined the depths of Philip's darkness. While Philip was waiting for his trial, a judge threw out his confession because he was questioned without an attorney present. Philip's defense lawyers said that Chisholm was detained by police for more than 3 hours after being arrested at 12:30 a.m. on October 23rd. Additionally, they said that Chisholm was handcuffed for most of that time and wasn't allowed to make a phone call. They also said that Chisholm had repeatedly asked for food but was turned down. The judge wrote a 48-page ruling in which she said it was clear that Philip's mother wanted an attorney to be present during her son's questioning, even though Philip waived his rights. The judge concluded that the court could not find beyond a reasonable doubt that he knew, understood, and willingly waived his Miranda rights. Crime scene investigators found cell phones belonging to Philip and Colleen that they got from statements However, the court said that they would not be allowed as evidence. Despite this setback, other important evidence, such as Philip's pockets full of money and a bloody box cutter, will be allowed to stand trial in December 2015. Philip Chisholm was found guilty of killing Colleen. Assistant District Attorney for Essex County, Kate McDougall, made a strong case that Philip was focused and unwavering in his horrible plan. She said that Philip wasn't crazy, but planned and deliberate in what he did to Colleen. However, Philip's defense attorney, Denise Regan, had a different view of the case. People like Denise Regan said that Philip was crazy when he killed the woman. Regan said that Philip had no other reason for doing what he did. During the trial, the defense called forensic psychiatrist Dr. Anthony Jackson to talk about Philip's behavior after he was arrested. Dr. Jackson said that Philip's behavior got better after he was given an antipsychotic drug. He said that Philip's hallucinations and delusions got better, and he seemed more alert and oriented. This evidence seemed to show that Philip's actions were affected by his mental state at the time of the murder. Another important witness, Dr. Richard Dudley, a psychiatrist who specializes in forensic evaluations, testified for the prosecution. Dr. Dudley said that he had seen Pilly 7 times while he was in jail waiting for his sentencing. At the time of the murder, Philip heard voices and thought there was a ninja nearby. These voices, which were allegedly telling him what to do, played a big role in his decision-making process. Dr. Dudley also said that Philip had been on the schizophrenia spectrum since childhood. He said that while Philip had shown signs of schizophrenia in the past, his condition had gotten much worse before the murder. Schizophrenia is a mental illness that changes how a person thinks, feels, and acts. It is a long-term condition that affects about 1% of the population. People who have schizophrenia may have illusions and hallucinations, confused thinking, and withdrawing from society. They may have trouble telling the difference between what is real and what isn't. This makes it hard for them to go about their daily lives. Dr. Dudley said that Philip had recently said he was sorry for killing Colleen, and that he would not have done it if he hadn't heard the voices. However, the prosecution disputed the doctor's statements, saying that Philip was making up or exaggerating his symptoms. They said that Philip's mental illness wasn't a good enough reason for his actions. To make their case to the jury, the prosecution used strong evidence, such as surveillance tapes that showed Philip following Colleen into the bathroom moments before she was killed. These tapes gave important clues about how the crime was planned and carried out. They also showed the jury graphic photos of the crime scene, showing Colleen's horrific injuries, including a box cutter wound to the neck. The judge and jury were allowed to visit Danvers High School, the scene of the crime, to get a better understanding of what happened that terrible day. This gave them the chance to see for themselves where Colleen was attacked and killed. For many, it was a very emotional experience that brought the reality of the situation into stark relief in a last-ditch effort to sway the jury. For Philip's defense, they called his maternal grandpa, Eduardo Barbie, to the stand. Eduardo told the jury that Philip's grandmother had a mental breakdown in the early 1970s and had been treated with electric shock therapy. He also told them that some of his other children had also been treated for mental illness and spent time in psychiatric facilities. A Philip's classmate also said that Philip's behavior had changed a lot in the few days before Colleen was killed. This classmate said that Philip, who used to be lively and outgoing, had become quiet and distant. This sudden change in behavior made Philip's classmates suspicious. Despite Raven's best efforts, the jurors found Philip Chasm guilty of Colleen Ritzer's murder and sentenced him to life in prison with the possibility of parole in 40 years. During the sentencing, the judge said that Colleen's death was brutal and senseless. The details of the murder were horrifying and showed how much pain Colleen went through. You might think that Philip's life sentence would be the last time anyone heard of him, but that wasn't the case. In 2004, when he was 25, Philip pleaded guilty to attempted murder, assaults, battery with a dangerous weapon, and kidnapping. These charges were related to an incident in June 2014, when a Massachusetts Department of Youth Services worker said he attacked her in a way similar to how he killed his teacher, Colleen Ritzer. A year ago, the youth services worker said Philip followed her into a bathroom, pinned her against a wall, and tried to choke and hit her with a pencil. This shocking discovery made it even clearer that Philip Chisholm was a dangerous person who didn't care about people's lives. After pleading guilty, Philip got an extra 17 to 20 years in prison on top of the life sentence he already had. In a powerful statement read in court, the surveyor who was attacked by Philip talked about her terrifying experience. In a letter, the youth service worker talked about how scared she was after the attack and how she couldn't leave her room because she thought Philip was waiting for her. Her words reminded us of how terrifying Philip was. Philip Chisholm is now trying to take his case to the highest court in Massachusetts. His lawyer, Michael Schneider, has said that there was no doubt that Philip was the person who killed Colleen, but his insanity argument has been called into question. Michael Schneider says that Philip was wrongly convicted because there wasn't enough proof, and the judge should not have allowed brain scan expert testimony that would have supported Philip's claim of mental illness. Brain scan expert evidence is one of the most important parts of Philip's appeal. Michael Schneider says that these scans would have shown that Philip was mentally ill at the time of the crime if this expert evidence had been taken out. Schneider says the jury didn't fully understand Philip's mental state at the time of the murder. Learning that Philip Chisholm was appealing his sentence made Colleen's family and friends very angry. They told the media how determined they were to make sure he stayed in prison. In jail, Colleen's family and friends were sure that Philip's actions were planned, evil, and beyond doubt after the trial and jury's verdict. They said that the overwhelming evidence left no room for doubt. One of the things that made Colleen's family and friends the most angry was that Philip had never shown any remorse. They were even more sure that Philip could never be forgiven because he didn't show any empathy, because they think he should be resentenced. The idea that he might be qualified for parole is unthinkable to them. Colleen and her family were not given a second chance, and it is unthinkable that they would have to think again about the possibility of shortening this murderer's sentence for Colleen's family. They can't even imagine that justice would not be done. They believe that the guilty verdict and the maximum sentence were well deserved. It is hard for them to believe that the killer would even be considered for a lesser sentence. It is another painful reminder of the huge loss they have suffered. After the murder of Colleen Ritzer, teachers across the country felt more fear and anxiety. Knowing that a student could target and harm one of their own teachers made them feel vulnerable and unsafe in their job. Because of the worries caused by Colleen Ritzer's murder, teachers who thought they were in a pretty safe place had to reevaluate their safety measures and take extra steps to protect themselves and their children. U.S. schools raised security measures to protect teachers and staff. These measures included stricter access controls, more video surveillance systems, and more lockdown routines. Schools also hired trained security guards and held regular safety drills to get kids and staff ready for possible emergencies. The goal is to make things safer and lower the chance of similar things happening again in the future. The killing of Colleen Ritzer. Also, more alertness and attention. Teachers became more aware of the possible warning signs and behaviors that their children might show. Teachers said they were more careful with their relationships with students, and students said they were more aware of their surroundings and asked for help from school officials when they needed it. This extra care was meant to stop similar acts of violence from happening and make sure everyone on campus was safe. Concerns were also made about the safety of teachers when they are with students after Colleen's death. In answer to this worry, teachers said they were afraid they would be picked on or hurt physically if a student became hostile or violent. Teachers were trained in schools to handle possibly violent situations calmly and report problems to the authorities. Teachers were also given advice on how to stay safe when they were talking to students one-on-one. Thanks for joining me in exploring this chilling true crime story. If you found it as fascinating as I did, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into real-life mysteries. Have any thoughts or theories about today's case? Share them in the comments below. I love hearing from you. And remember, stay curious, stay safe, and keep questioning the world around you.